We often call them the golden years, but not all older Ontarians experience their later stages of life as endless outings with friends and happy afternoons with the grandkids. In fact, for some, aging comes with increased isolation and declining health as social circles shrink and families change. Joining us now to explore how to keep older folks connected and supported, Dr. Samir Sinha. He's Director of Geriatrics, Sinai Health System, and the University Health Network. Dr. Adriana Schnall, Chief of Social Work at Baycrest Health Sciences. Jane Meadus, Staff Lawyer at the Advocacy Center for the Elderly. And Susan Hyatt, Founder and CEO of Silver Sherpa. And we are delighted to welcome Dr. Sinha back for probably the 600th time to our program. Maybe not that many, but it's close to it. And everybody else, great to have you here as well. Let's get into this, Dr. Sinha, with this. There are about 2 million Ontarians age 65 plus. How much of that segment of the population would you characterize as socially frail? Let's put it that way.
Yes, I mean, when we start talking about social frailty, I think we start talking about people who may not be as well connected in their communities. And that can even be people who are living with others, but for example, during the day when everybody else goes to work or goes to school, they might be on their own. And we know about 27%, about 1 in 4 older Ontarians actually tells us they don't have a friend or family member close at hand who can help them with a basic task like getting a prescription filled. So a lot of people living in more isolated situations that can hurt them when they're in challenges and facing challenges.
That's 500,000 people. That's a lot of people.
Absolutely.
Susan, tell us what you do.
Well, Silver Sherpa is a professional services company that I started 6 years ago when my own parents went into crisis, and I could not move them from the healthcare system into different living accommodations in the community, which was safe for them. And I'm a healthcare clinician. I'm a physiotherapist. Because there was so much confusion with different parts of the healthcare system. There was no cohesive group that could deal with healthcare and then money, because both of them had to go into care and it costs money. There were no publicly available services at that time for them in their communities.
And they were how old at the time?
And it was 6 years ago. They're now 94 and 92.
Okay.
And I've been looking after my father for 16 years, so well above the average, which I think is about 6.3 years in Ontario. So there was no one that I could go to that was a professional service that could bring healthcare, the finances, and the legal system together.
So you built it yourself?
So I said, there's got to be a better way. And many of my friends in the healthcare system said, Sue, you need to do this. So I did.
And how much of your work is geared towards what we might call, what was the expression we liked?
Socially frail.
Socially frail, okay.
Well, I have a different perspective from Samir on that. Some of the people are socially frail that we're dealing with. So we're dealing with two populations. Those that are moving towards potential crisis, which I would agree with you are the socially frail. But there's also another group that I think has been quite surprising to me, and I didn't know they were there. And those are the elder orphans who call themselves elder orphans. Now, I know that in the healthcare system, we think, oh, that doesn't sound, words matter, and that's not a nice title.
What does it actually mean?
People, just like they call themselves elder orphans because they're alone, either by choice or they have no children, they don't have a partner, and they don't have friends and family to support them. But they can actually be in their 60s. And I've been following a Facebook group from the US that started with 300 members about 2 years ago. They're now over 7,000 members, and they're proud to call themselves elder orphans. They're not the socially frail, they're more the seniors that are planning the next 40 years.
We'll follow up more on this language as we continue our conversation here. From a legal point of view, is this the most vulnerable group in our society?
I think it is. They get into situations where they're maybe trusting people that they shouldn't, so you get the people coming to the door, so they're more likely to have people coming into their lives who may take advantage of them, take their money, try to take their houses. These are the people who, get into scams where people are saying, well, if you just, if you sign your house over to me, I'll take care of you forever, and then that doesn't happen. I think they also get into trouble in our healthcare system. I think anybody who has a family member who goes into the hospital, we all know that, hey, you go to the hospital with them and you watch, and those are people who don't have anyone to go in to advocate for them. And they can get sort of lost both in the healthcare and the hospital system as well as in long-term care where people aren't looking out for them. So they have a lot of legal challenges as well.
In your experience, how often do those legal challenges come from within the family?
Very often, we get a lot of people who are being taken advantage by family members.
By their own kids?
By their own kids, by absolutely kids, grandchildren. And that's a big part of the work that we do in our office, actually.
Don't name names, obviously, but give us a for instance of something you might have seen in your practice.
Family says, Mom, if you'll say, give the house to us, we'll just sign it over, and then we won't have to worry about estate taxes, and we'll take care of you forever. And Mom either gets put in the basement for a little while, and then all of a sudden she's out on the street, and she doesn't have any legal right to that home. And now you're having to try to backtrack on all of that, and that is a very common scenario.
That's a common scenario. People do
Yes.
that to their parents.
Absolutely. It's
actually
very sad.
quite common. Another one that we often see are loans to adult children. Or we see, Mom, could you co-sign on the mortgage? And Mom doesn't realize what she's co-signing.
Adriana,
It's
what is
quite
your
common.
particular mission at Baycrest?
We really want to enrich people's lives and so that people can live to the fullest potential, really. And we specialize in older adults. And the socially isolated older adult in particular is a real group that we really have to do outreach for them because just they're isolated. And so the average person that comes into Baycrest is generally somebody who has resources or a family member or an advocate that knows about it. But how do you get out to those people that are truly at risk or the frail, as you call them? They don't know to call. They don't know who to call. I mean, Baycrest, we all think we know Baycrest, but the people that are living in a basement apartment because their family said sign the loan are not calling Baycrest. So we try to do outreach when we can to the community at large. And so through our seniors counseling and referral program, which is anybody can call Baycrest, is the kind of, I'm calling because I have a problem, I don't know what to do, goes to the seniors counseling and referral program.
And how can you help this group?
First of all, it's doing a brief assessment, and I don't want to medicalize it because it's not an assessment per se, but it's figuring out what the issues are. Are this an issue because there's family conflict? Is this an issue that somebody is developing dementia and nobody knows about it and they're doing strange things, but really they're not so strange. There's somebody with dementia would do. It's trying to get them connected to a day program, to a drop-in center. We have volunteers that call people weekly just so that they're not so isolated. I mean, you'd be surprised what a phone call to somebody who's on their own makes the difference in people's lives.
You've seen this, Dr. Schnell, right? Where a little bit of intervention can really turn somebody's life around?
Oh, completely.
Completely, eh?
Completely. From somebody, I mean, we have one client who really has nobody in this world and waits for this phone call every week. And she's suicidal. And yet the agreement is, I'll call you next Thursday. Will you answer the phone? Yes, I will. Right? So it's something as small that sometimes when we intervene with people that, and we've been doing this for a long time. Baycrest is 100 years old now. Right.
100 years old this year.
Yeah, this year.
Happy birthday.
Thank you. Yeah.
I think that one of the problems, though, is that in a city like Toronto, we do have a fair amount of resources for these populations. And we have places like Mount Sinai and Baycrest. And you get into the smaller areas and we don't have as many resources. There aren't any day programs. And so even if the person may have a little bit of contact with someone, it may not be enough. And then you get people in rural areas who nobody's really paying much attention to. And it may not even be that they don't have kids. The kids may be in, the big city, they may be in another country. And that population can really be quite problematic to try to get to because we don't have the resources outside of some of the really large centers.
Can we get back to language here for a second? Because I know you like the term socially frail, and you had used the term elder orphans, and you don't like that term very much, do you?
Well, I think this is the challenge, right? I think, first of all, how do older people want to be seen and how they want to declare? If someone wants to call themselves an elder orphan, people can call themselves whatever they want. I think the key that we're learning in my practice is geriatrics, but even when I was developing the Government of Ontario senior strategy, we realized that people more and more don't want to be called seniors. They want to be called older adults, right? And language does matter because I think the challenge is while some people might want to identify themselves as orphans, I think for some of us, we might think of the term orphan and say, well, they were abandoned because they were worthless or there's something else, where other people say, no, I tend to be isolated, or I like the term frail, when describing this population, because it gives a sense of, it doesn't say that they're weak per se, but they might be in a situation that might lend challenges. So I think it's just important to remember that as we use language to describe populations or describe ourselves, there's a lot of inference that comes with that, and we have to make sure it's always, it's upholding respect and
I
support.
get it. What's wrong with senior citizens? You don't like that anymore?
Well, no, I like, it's funny, I have a great older colleague who says, I'd like to be called a senior citizen. Don't call me just a senior, call me a senior citizen, because it reminds you that I'm actually a person, I'm a citizen, and not just a senior. So it's reminded me as a clinician that I always ask, first of all, how do my patients want to be referred to? Some of them want to be very formal, some want to tell me their nickname, others might say, call me an orphan or not. But I think as clinicians and as a medical professional, I just have to remember that that label can really be damaging, because if I just say, when we mislabel people with dementia, all of a sudden people start having all these thoughts about what the person can or can't do. And that sometimes really disempowers how they can participate, as Jane has seen, from decision-making or participation.
So I'd like to take that point you made a little bit further even. In the problem, I think, with language and when we talk about orphans is that we, older adults, sometimes don't see themselves as older adults. So we always joke that the biggest ages in society sometimes are older adults. Like, I'm not like them, I don't want to be like them. The problem, and so we have to be so careful because everybody's views of their lives and how they perceive themselves is pretty unique. But as a society, groups that are less empowered, like older adults, we have an obligation to give them some power. An orphan sometimes has, the idea of orphan in my head is around children. Only children are orphan. I can be in my 50s and be an orphan, but it's a different kind of orphan. It's not being the lonely, it's am I a child? And with the frail, as a social worker, I'll take that even further. I see frailty as a medical term. Like a geriatric syndrome, frailty is a geriatric syndrome. What's wrong with calling people isolated and not using jargon?
So you don't like the word frail either?
Well, because to me it's a medicalized idea.
Okay, Susan.
Right?
So
agree
to me,
with you,
is
Adriana.
isolation
Well,
is
wait a
what
minute.
it is.
You said you agree, but the article I read that you...
on the frailty side
see.
of this because it reminds me, well, first of all, I am a senior citizen, so I do speak with some authority here.
So what do you want us to call you besides Susan?
So you can call me Susan and you can call me whatever you like. I have a vision of being a golden girl someday when my husband has flown away, as he says, to music. And I have two daughters, one of whom's a physician and one who's a business person. And we're very independent in our family. So I have this vision of planning the next 40 or 50 years of my life because I've put them on notice that I intend to live to 105 at least. And so
how do they feel about that?
If you think about it, they ran out of the room screaming. But if you think about it, we've got to open up all of our stereotypes and our ideas and our thinking about this. Because if you call me a senior citizen, I'm not going to be very happy. If you call me socially frail, I don't like that either. So I think it's stereotypes cut both ways.
Okay, having put all that in place, let's now figure out how we can create situations where people avoid the isolation which is at the foundation of our discussion
That's
today.
the foundation.
Okay, right. So let's go there. How do we want to avoid the kind of isolation that takes years off of and clearly joy off of the life of people who are, fill in the blank, use whatever term you like?
Well, the first thing is we know that social isolation does matter and it can affect a person's well-being because, in great studies of longevity, people who are actually well-connected socially, that means having at least one meaningful social contact a week, and more than a phone call usually, but sometimes for people that's all they get. It can actually lengthen your life by a few years. So there's good evidence behind it. We also know that as people get older, they might outlive friends and family members, and therefore, or if they're a successful parent, for example, their children might be in different parts of the world or whatever the case is. So there's different reasons why people will be isolated. The key is what we know is it's important to help support people to continue to build and strengthen their social networks as they age. So one of the things that doesn't get a lot of press in Ontario, but I've been really thrilled that through our Ministry of Seniors, is we've actually been putting more funding towards bringing people together in group settings, through clubs, through funding more what we call seniors active living centers, because by giving people natural ways in which they can actually make friends, not through clinical means, but actually through social means, just like you did when you were younger, we know that actually helps strengthen social networks and actually, from a business sense, will save us all as taxpayers more money if they're not using more expensive healthcare services.
What would you add to that list?
I'd like to see, like you suggested, more normalized kind of supports rather than medical. So I like that idea of in seniors buildings or older adult buildings, why not have recreationists that go there and do programming, go for walks, keep people physically active. I'm a big proponent. I was in California, and they provide their support groups, and their groups are walking groups. They go for a walk, and you do your support group as you're doing activity, because it's the isolation. Part of the problem is that the less you do, the less you do. And so you're isolated, and before you know it, you can't get together with your friend because you're sitting in front of the TV, your muscles are not working, you have more pain, you become incontinent. Now I don't want to go out because I'm incontinent. And so
This
we
keeps
need to get people, it's not just
the
the
physical,
social.
the emotional, the mental,
exactly.
the intellectual
So
all
why
together.
don't we have, like every day you're building at 8 in the morning, meet in the lobby, go for a walk. I mean, we have a big issue around the legalities in North America, which I have a big problem with. Like, you need a doctor's permission to go for a walk. Like,
You really don't. And this is part of the problem, though, is that we do have all these things where, like, I go into places where I do see people told, you can't do this, the doctor says you can't do that. And I said, the doctor can't tell you any of those things, and you,
What are you saying, don't listen to your doctor?
Well, I'm not saying that, but there's all sorts of things that are put into care plans and you can't have a drink or you can't do this for, there's no legal authority. If you want to do those things and you're 85, you can do those things. And those may be social things, you got to weigh your own risks and balances. But I was going to say, one of the things is that we have to get the population that aren't in the senior centers, right? Yeah. It's those people whose spouses died, the kids have gone away, they're living in either, an urban or a rural area where they don't have a senior center and they're not going to church anymore or they're not doing to clubs anymore. And how do we reach those people? And I think we really have to do an outreach for that population.
I agree with you, Jane. Some of the things that we've found quite successful in our practice, because a lot of our families, the children may be overseas, they're not at home, they're worried about their parent, they're on the farm. If you look at multi-generational opportunities, so I come from a farming community, the 4-H club, they still exist, believe it or not. If you take the kids at the 4-H club and you start to build the village mentality that we used to have, the kids love meeting those seniors. They love to go and check on Mr. So-and-so because he tells them stories. And pretty soon you have an opportunity. Another thing that we see in some of the the urban communities are some of the church communities are now reaching out, and the synagogues are reaching out to people, and they don't care what your denomination is. It's just part of their outreach, and they're bringing their children and they're teaching them this is what neighborhood is. This is what a village is. We have to, and it's nothing to do with government funding or medicine or healthcare, nothing to do with that at all. I think we have to get back to the village and the neighborhood.
It takes a village.
It
All right,
takes
having
a
said that, Samir, if you are a single or you're married and you are in your advanced stage of life, if you don't have kids, are you more vulnerable than if you do?
Well, this is one of the challenges. A lot of people think that by having children, I guarantee an elder care plan. And I joke with my parents, right? My parents are both in Winnipeg. They had 2 sons. That was their first mistake. I always joke they should have had a daughter because I'm convinced that if you have a daughter, you're more likely to live longer. We haven't done that study yet. But having children doesn't guarantee you elder care. You may have children, but they may not live in the same city as you, for example. This is why we really talk about the benefit of actually, regardless of whether or not you have children, it's about being charming, it's about making friends and being social. But, back to the point about, how do we build communities that care for each other? Sometimes we have lots of services that people aren't even aware of in their own neighborhoods. And so part of our job is to making sure people know what's there. And one of the initiatives I'm really proud of is, we talked about people who are at home getting weaker, falling. And every year, our seniors, our 2 million seniors, 1 in 3 will fall in a given year. And that costs us $750 million a year. So one of the things we did was we actually put $10 million to creating 2,000 free exercise and falls prevention classes. Some people liked it because I said if people do falls prevention exercises for free in their communities, in their own buildings, then they're less likely to end up in hospital and save our healthcare system money. But the other sideline was, I'm not going to go to a club to make a friend, but I'll go to that class so I don't fall. And hey, what's your name? Do you want to be my buddy? Do you want? And that sometimes it's about being clever with policy and programming, but making sure people know about it, because if people don't know about it, then it's not really worth the effort.
And I think it has to come probably through doctors' offices, because I think that's often the one place that people do have. If they have no other services, it might be the doctor's offices. So I think we need to provide that information in those offices, because it's really hard to get to those seniors if they're not in anything else right now.
And you might listen to your doctor where you wouldn't listen to your kid.
Yeah, it's even just providing that information, because the doctor and seniors, I think our seniors today still have that respect for doctors that perhaps some of the younger generations don't have anymore. They do listen to their doctors, and so that's a place where you can give that information.
Let's be a little disruptive. Let's put that information at the bank. Because if you go to a bank at 2:00 in the afternoon, it's full of seniors because there's social activity at the bank. And a lot of banks actually serve tea and cake in the afternoon now. And it's the seniors that are there. So why not be creative? And we're trying to do some things through the bank in terms of elder abuse, because they're the early warning radar system. It's not just the doctor.
Adriana, you were going to say.
I was saying we're moving more into the virtual world. And a lot of people, there's a lot of controversy around this. But if we were able to provide some of our older adults with the means to use tablets, their phones, and have high-speed internet, we're starting to do counseling, virtual counseling. And so the rural people, the people that don't necessarily have others, it's a way to at least get to know or get infiltrated. And by that, I don't mean the negative context, but try to reach out.
And it works?
So it works. And we have this idea, again, it's ageist. Oh, older adults, they don't have computers, they don't like computers. You don't have to know. All it takes is a little bit of training on how to turn it on, either your phone, and for virtual, they're all links and they're private. So this is a new world now, and it's a really hopeful way to look at what being isolated may look like or not.
Speaking of a new world, how much in your practice do you see, for lack of a better expression, silver separation or gray divorce, that kind of thing?
A lot. It's increasing dramatically. It's hard in the statistics. We're only just realizing some of these things, but some of the sociologists in the U.S. are starting to write more about this. But a lot more.
This is
gray
people
divorces.
splitting up in their
50s, 60s, 70s, 80s. There's the other side of the coin too, and that's predatory marriages. So it's not just the gray divorces, but some of our seniors are quite vulnerable because they're lonely. They may have split up from their partner of many years, and we're seeing incidences of predatory marriages where a housekeeper or a worker going in is persuading the person to marry them because they'll look after them for life. And that, Jane, I'm sure, can make more comments on that, but we're seeing an increase.
Yeah, we actually did one of the only cases where there was a predatory marriage case where the senior themselves actually was part of the case. They're usually done after the fact, so it's usually these cases are litigated because the person has died and now the spouse is inheriting part of the estate. Now the kids come out and they don't like it. But we actually did one of these cases, and it was exactly that. A woman came in, said, marry me and I will take care of you. All I
What
wanted
was the age gap?
I think it was about 25 years. So she was actually in her 60s. He was in his 80s or 90s. She said she would take, care of him and he wouldn't have to go to a nursing home.
And what happened?
And she married him. She took his money. She got the house signed over to her son. It was really quite a devastating. Now it went to court, and we were very successful, and he was able to get everything back.
You got it overturned.
We did, and but the problem is that this isn't. This woman had been married many times, and so who knows how many times this had happened.
Can you really
to other
legislate
people.
against that kind of thing, though?
It's a really tough thing because the capacity to marry is actually a very low capacity, so you don't have to be very mentally capable. But the problem is that it has all these financial implications and these other implications that people don't really necessarily understand and that are a higher level of capacity. And I think we're going to have to start to pull those things apart. And that's one of the things we will have to legislate, I think.
So where's this going? Is it going in the right direction or the wrong direction?
Well, I think, people all over the world now are starting to recognize the issue that I think social isolation is becoming a greater issue, and it will as we live longer. I mean, yay, we're living longer, but boo, that we might actually be living more isolated lives. Governments like England have now actually said we have a minister of loneliness. I think that's a bit extreme. I think what we need to have, though, but I think it's recognizing it's an issue. But I think we're now starting to see it doesn't grab the headlines every day that organizations or different folks are out there recognizing this and then saying, how do we start focusing on social isolation? And I certainly look at not only a person's health and physical and functional aspects, but I also look at that aspect. I call it social frailty. I don't call it to them social frailty because nobody wants to be called frail. But I think if we educate ourselves more and then think about how government, but also society can start responding better to this, we're starting to see nice programs and ideas percolating, and we need to do more over the next number of years.
So what I just saw today on Facebook, social media, they have these called granny pods.
Yes.
Where you have this built-in between 125 square feet to 500 that you could put in your backyard, the adult children's backyard, where people could be independent. And I thought it was really interesting because I'm not one for having generations necessarily living together. But I don't like the living together, like you said, in the basement. But if you could have your own space and your own home within your family's compound kind of thing, it'd be so nice to at least after school see your grandchildren and say hello and still go to your own place.
Be able to close the door.
It's been done in Australia and New Zealand for
and
20 years.
I just
we
read
lived
it
in Australia
this morning, and I thought, I wonder, that would be an interesting concept where you have the independence, the idea of a different home within the same property. Maybe an interesting idea.
It's a great idea, but I challenged one of our local mayors on a television show last week because I challenged about the Golden Girls living together. There's a rooming house bylaw that you can, 4 girls can live together, Golden Girls, but not 5. So in some municipalities, there's
gotta get some bylaws changed.
You've got to get bylaws changed. Same with granny pods, not allowed.
I just thought, I don't like the, there's a lot, I don't like the terminology.
I was told there's a default
I don't
position.
like the and all these things, but I thought the concept of the independence
wonderful. Yes.
and the idea, I think a culture shift needs to be, we live in an independent society
Yeah.
that we don't ever ask for help. We have to grow old and don't ask for help anybody because we shouldn't. And maybe shift the culture that there might be times in our lives where we need to ask for help.
Right. Speaking of asking for help, I'm asking Lorraine for help. How much time have I got left? She says, one to ask the last question. Okay, Samir. Ontario budget came out recently. Anything in there you saw that would be useful on this front?
Some previously announced things back in the fall, which were about things called seniors community grants, more senior center, and just the other day it was announced that, for folks who are living on their own and maybe isolated, sometimes it's that snow that actually keeps you isolated in the winter. So apparently if this budget goes through, people can get up to $750 a year to pay for snow shoveling, and ways that can actually help you feel less isolated potentially in their community, because we know at the civic level, it's often cited as a barrier that keeps people shut in and not being able to engage in their community. So again, slowly but surely, I think people are starting to recognize there are ways in which we can support people to live less isolated lives.
Great. It's all about connection, isn't it?
Absolutely.
Good stuff. I thank all of you for coming into TVO tonight and helping us out with this conversation. Really, really important and timely. I can't believe you're a senior citizen. Really? There you go.
Would you like to see my driver's license?
No, I take your word for it.
You see?
I'll take your word for it. That's good.
Never judge a book by its cover.
Right on. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
The Agenda with Steve Bacon is brought to you by the Chartered Professional Accountants of Ontario, helping businesses stay on the right side of change with strategic thinking, insightful decisions, and business leadership. Are you on the right side of change? Ask an Ontario CPA.